My name is Sharon Ledbetter. I am the Idaho Regional Coordinator for the Quilts of Valor. We are going to work on just a simple 9 patch today in the method that I prefer so that we end up with a block that is consistent in size, looks lovely. You can take this block and incorporate it in your quilt as I can take yours to incorporate in mine. The reason that the 1/4 inch seam is so important is that if you vary in that seam, then when you start joining blocks together, you are moving 1 thread, 2 threads. Doesn't seem like much. You can be as much as a 1/2 inch to 1 inch off from side to side or top to bottom. The 1/4 inch foot, which all machine makers are now making, allows you to go brain dead. You can feed your fabrics in. The little guide at the corner of the foot keeps your fabric moving straight into your machine. We also need a walking foot when we get down to the quilting end of it and also putting binding on, and also a flat foot for any straight seam when we're doing a 45 or a diagonal stitch. The next thing is that we want to make sure that all of our rulers are of the same brand. Your cutting mat can easily clean them with a doobie pad and some dishwashing soap. Never, ever, ever use your mat to mark your fabric for cutting. If you continue to do that, you will destroy a mat in less than a year. We do not have to pre-wash. If I have any doubt at all that the fabric I have is going to bleed or run, I will take some boiling water, take a corner of the fabric and dip it in it. So if it turns the water, then I know that I need to address that fact, wash it, use any of the setting supplies that are out there now to keep your color within. I always take my fabric and take it to my iron. I use a sizing which will remove any of the wrinkles that may be buried within your fabric. I also quarter my fabrics. So you're going to get it like this. You're going to press it. You're going to quarter it. And then I am going to use the folded side of my fabric, of my quarter, to be my guide for the measurement. Now, it doesn't matter which line you use on your ruler or how you're using it, just plain be consistent. I am going to align my ruler with the folded edge, and I am always going to begin my cut on the folded edge. So I'm lining up my 4.5 inch along my cut line, and I'm making my cut. And again, another 4.5 inch strip. The 1/2 inch is our seams, the 4 inches are blocks, 3 by 4 is 12. Before we begin stitching, we are going to adjust our machine so that its stitch length is at a 1.9. At 1.9, what is happening is you've reduced your stitch length so that when you open your seams in pressing, you will not be able to see that stitch, and it also keeps your fabric tightly together. It will not pull easy. I'm going to start off the end of my fabric so that I make sure I get a good stitch. I've got it lined up, and I'm going to let my machine do its job. Please, please clip your threads also, your long threads at the end. This simplifies the quilting process for your long armors, and it's not in your way. When it comes to the pressing process, this is one of the most critical parts of the piecing. The very first thing I am going to do is set the seam. When you set your seams, what you're doing is you're burying the thread into the fabrics. So you are stabilizing these pieces now. It becomes part of the fabric. At the top of my seam and open them. Why do I do this? When you open your seams, you are reducing a major amount of bulk. And especially if you're using a pattern where you've got several seams coming together, I want to keep these fabrics as flat as possible. Now, why don't I go this way and press that seam open? I don't do that because, number one, I'm using steam. Number two, as you move with the fabric, you are distorting the size. And if you notice, as you're opening these seams, you are getting a little parting of your fabric. So I allow it to come back, then I hit it. Turn it over, and I give it a good set on the front side. I am going to square up an edge. And what I'm doing is taking this seam line, which I know to be true, and I am laying a mark so that it's right on that line. Now I want the same measurement my strips were, which is 4.5 inches. And I'm going to cut 2 of these blocks. I have a 9 patch, which now needs 2 seams to finish. I want to make sure that my points are matching. When we're joining the seams of these, I take a quilting pin. And the quilting pins are heavier pins. Our daisy hand pins that we use for quilting, they will give you a better fit when you're tacking these down. So I'm coming down about 1/4 inch. I am driving that needle through the top, and as a right-hander, I am working from right to left. If you are a left-hander, work from left to right. This avoids stretching your blocks in the center. And then I'm going to come down below and drive it directly through. Now you'll learn as you look at the way I'm holding this pin, I want it parallel and horizontal. And so I have got a good grip right below the pin, and I am going to come as close as possible with my daisy pin, and I am putting that pin right directly next to this line. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, and I am going to open this up and add the other one. The reason that I do this is so that we get a good seam match. So remember, when we start our seam off the edge, what we are doing is making sure that this seam is caught and tight, so that when it gets open, pressed, and adjoined to other blocks, we don't end up with holes in the quilt where fabrics are moving, okay? So now that I've got to the center of that seam line, now I pull the pin. And I continue down to my next one. Pull the pin, and away we go. So accurate, it went right over the top. Now it's just a matter of pressing again, set our seams, we give those seams an open, hit them with a little steam. You will also notice that the back of your block looks as nice as the front does. And you can see that you've got really good seaming. Turn it over, give it a hit. Nothing's ever perfect, but that's about as perfect and flat and nice a block as you can get.